Is this on? Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Good? Just had a great little session, didn't we? I know some of you have stayed, some of you went, but we're going to talk about expense in this section. Now, just to kind of give you an understanding of what we're going to go over, I'm not going to do a lot of demos. I'm just going to kind of give a refresher. We've been using expense for quite a while here at Chesapeake, so this piece will just be to kind of give you a refresher of some of the things that have changed and how things look now. So, without further ado. Okay, so this is our topics. We're going to talk about what's changing. We're going to talk about creating an expense report. Like I said, we don't need to go into a lot of detail. It's pretty self-explanatory, most of it, a lot of wizards. We're also going to talk about the mobile application. The mobile application will become very useful for you to take pictures of your receipts. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll also talk about some of the common issues that you're going to run into. There's some standard issues that you're going to run into as you're doing the expense reports, and we'll kind of talk about some of those. And the most important, where can I get help? I'm frustrated, what do I do? So we'll talk about that as well. Okay, some of the things that are changing. Travel has been added to Concur. We've kind of talked about that quite a bit already, haven't we? So the travel piece is integrated into Concur. It's integrated into the dashboard as well. So it's a one-stop shopping for your travel and expense needs. There's also been a delineation between out-of-pocket expenses and travel expenses on your credit card. So that won't be the case anymore. From now on, you do everything on one expense report. It's going to save the company money, and that's a good thing. Okay, first look. This is what the dashboard looks like. We've kind of gone over this a little bit. It's a little bit blurry, isn't it? Oh well, we can still deal with it. So if you'll take a look, the nice thing about this is the dashboard has everything you need right here. You've got your trip right here. You can book your trip right here on Concur. You don't even have to go to the travel tab. You can actually just do it right there. You can start, I know Nicole and Camille went through some of those pieces, how to do that. If you just want to do the expense piece, you can do that section right here. But you don't have to. You can also, here's your expenses right here. You could actually click on this section and go in and start doing the expense report right away. If you just need to do approvals, let's say you're a manager, you've got some employees that submitted some BYDs, and you just want to hop in and approve them, you can click on this approval section on your dashboard. So you go into Concur, and you can start doing it right away. You don't have to wait. The mobile application is also great for BYD expenses because you just have one expense. It's a one and done, and you're good to go. So this dashboard really makes it nice. Also, if you take a look at the top here, it tells you what's going on. It tells you you can start a report there, you can upload your receipts there, but it also says how many do I have to approve? Do I have 1, 2? It'll do a number right there. It'll say how many trips do you have as well. So you've kind of got a scorecard as well as just the dashboard. You can also, let's see, you've also got these company notes here and alerts and tips and things like that, like the tips and tricks type deal. Okay, so you've got your trip, it's already happened, and you've hopefully taken pictures of your receipts with your phone, so those will then automatically be uploaded, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And as your expenses come through, they will then show up into Concur. This picture right here is a snapshot of this prior. It's the same thing. You could basically click that and then select the expenses that you want. The nice thing about this is you don't have to select everything. If you just need to do a few of the expenses, you can select those and then add those to the different reports. And you can see right here in this section, you click on that move, and then you can select a new report to move those expenses to, or you can select existing reports. If you've already created a report, let's say with your mobile phone, it will show up in this list, and then you can just dump those expenses into that report that you've already started. Okay, so receipts. The very best way to manage your receipts is to, when you're at the restaurant and you're sitting down, the receipt comes, you're signing it from your credit card transaction, take out your phone and take a picture of it right then. That is the very best way. The reason is because when you take a picture of it, it uploads it automatically to the Concur website. It also puts a time date stamp on it, which makes it easier to find when you're trying to go through and do your expenses. There are other methods. You don't have to do it that way. You can email it to receipts@concur.com from your phone, or you could do it from your computer as well if you had the images on the computer. Now, it's difficult to get the images on the computer, so I wouldn't recommend that. And we'll take some questions on this as well if you have those. You can also scan the receipts in and email them at Concur, so that's another method. The issue with the scanning is, as we used to do in the past, you would take a sheet and you would put all your receipts on there, tape them on, and then scan it in. The problem with that is that it's very difficult to reconcile later on. It makes it very hard for accounting. If you just do it while you're doing your trip, it makes it much easier. And the other issue is if you scan the receipts now, you'll have to scan in one by one. And that makes it painful when you come back from your trip. So you don't want to do it that way. I also have, I put it out on Connect under my profile that you can actually, if you take pictures of the receipts, not through the Concur mobile app, you can actually plug your phone into your computer, pull the receipts down, and then upload them to the Concur profile. That's another method. That's more difficult. I wouldn't recommend that, but if you're in a jam and you're just like, I already took all the pictures and they're not on the Concur mobile app, what do I do? Then come see me, we can work that out, you can fix that. The other thing that you can do that we haven't talked about, if you put, let's say you're a delegate and you're going to be doing the expense reports for someone, you can actually put their email address in the subject line, in the to line, and it will actually send that receipts to their Concur mailbox so that when you're delegating into their box, you can then do their report right there. Okay. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this screen before, but we'll kind of talk about that if you have. I hear a few chuckles. So there's a couple of reasons why you would see a login with Concur. You're not going to see this. If you're getting into Concur, you typically just click on the Concur link, and bam, you're into Concur. The reason that you would see this login screen is if you were trying to connect to Concur from the outside of Chesapeake's network. So that's typically the reason that happens. You can get to Concur through Citrix. We just put up a new icon for Concur in Citrix. So you can go to your Citrix profile, log in, and there's the Concur link right there. The other method is you can VPN into your laptop, and now you're inside the corporate network, and then you can go to the Expense Center page and click on the Concur link, and you'll get in it that way as well. So just keep that in mind. Always remember, if it asks you to log in, then something's not set right. That's the main thing to remember. Okay, I also want to talk about BYOD. This is one of our major expense items. BYOD accounts for about 45 to 50% of our expenses that are every month. So this is one that comes up quite often. The main thing to remember with BYOD is you can do 12 submissions per year, so one per month. And the way that the system knows that you have done one per month is it looks at this transaction date. So there are two types of dates on Concur. When you open up and create a new report, you have the report date. The system's not looking at that for BYOD. So if you type in new report, let's call it BYOD September, and then you ask you to select a date, that date does not matter. Don't worry about that first date. You are worried about the transaction date. So in saying that, you can actually do two BYODs in the same month, and that saves the company money. If you did September and October, you could put both of those on as your BYOD reimbursement, and that would save the company $10 because it's about $9.50 to $10 a report every time we submit these. So the thing to remember on this is if I'm submitting my BYOD and I want to do 2 months, I could do July and August, but one of the dates needs to be July and the next date needs to be August, and I can do those. And then the total would be $100, but that still doesn't violate the policy because you're doing separate months. The other thing that you'll see, and this is a little bit blurry, I don't know why. It says you have exceeded the $50 monthly. You'll get that same message whether if you type in $55 and try to submit for a BYOD, it will give what's a hard stop. I think Nicole talked about the stoplight system. I like that. That was nice. So Concur has, this is the red stoplight. It basically says you've gone over the $50, you cannot do that. So it will not submit the expense. It'll block it. So all you would have to do is then go back into that expense line item, change it to $50, and it would go ahead and submit at that point. But what happens a lot of times is if you don't pay attention to this date when you're submitting your expense reports, the transaction date, you could, let's say you do September and you name the report September, and then you put November's transaction date on there, then when you try to do November's BYOD next time, it'll say you already used that month. And so that's why people have issues with that and trouble with that. Okay, I beat that to a dead horse, didn't I? Moving on, right? Okay, mobile. I just know everybody's excited about running out there to the BlackBerry store and getting their app for the BlackBerry. Am I right? Oh, come on. So I guess no one cares about that. So we do have it. I mean, it's pretty bad. So I have installed it twice. There are 2 people at the company that use this. One is our treasurer. He loves BlackBerries. Probably comes from the banking days. And I can help you install it if you're interested in that. Since we don't have very many of them, I did not create a QRC for that. I didn't see the need. So the mobile app is an excellent, excellent tool for Concur to be able to capture the receipts. You can do expense reports on it. You can book travel on it. You can do everything on it. It's a little bit more difficult if you've got multiple transactions to do it on the mobile device. The true beauty of the mobile device, in my eyes, is to be able to capture the receipts, and it automatically uploads to the site. And then when you get home, you can do the expense report. That being said, when I run the reports, I see a lot of customers doing the complete expense report for their BYOD because it's only one transaction. It makes it easy, it's quick, and you just get it done. And you don't even have to log into Concur. So I see that a lot. You can get this on the Apple Store. The install guides that I have, they're pretty easy to follow, and they're out on the Expense Center site. We also have an install guide for the Android folks as well. Okay, so these are the functions that it does. Capture and attach the receipts. That's probably my favorite. That makes it really, really simple and easy. I went to San Francisco about 7 months ago, and I was amazed how much easier it was to do this. I didn't have to worry about, actually I took a trip with Chesapeake about 4 years ago, and the maid came in and took all my receipts and threw them in the trash, and they were gone. And so I had to do receipt affidavits for all of my receipts, and I was just panicking. With this, you don't have to worry about that. You just take the picture of the receipt, and it's already on the site. It's ready to go. So that's the part that I really like. You can create expenses for future reports. So you can actually create the report and then start dumping the receipts and creating expense types right there if you want to. It takes a little bit of getting used to because it's an app feel versus the website. You can submit a report. I see a lot of folks approving reports from the phone as well. So that's another feature. Okay, so where can I get more information? The Expense Center page is excellent. It's a great resource. We've got a lot of QRCs. We even have one for the BlackBerry. There's install guides. There's all different kinds of information on here. How do I create a report? How do I approve a report? There's all different types of stuff on here. So I would encourage you to go to this. You can get to the Expense Center page by clicking on the Looking For, scrolling down to the bottom, Travel and Expense, Expense Center. That's how you get to the page. And you've got a link here to travel, and you also have one for Concur. This is the easiest way to get to your the Concur link. And also, we've got the corporate card application link on here as well. So if you know you're going to be traveling pretty soon, it's a couple weeks towards the trip, or let's say it's a month away, go ahead and get your corporate card because you're going to need that to do the trip. And that's where you start. That's where the application is. Okay, we kind of zoomed through that pretty quick. Any questions about what we covered? Uh-huh.
I got my corporate card, I guess Monday morning. We took a trip Tuesday, and so I have receipts, and I tried to fill out my Concur expense report, but it just says I can have a cash. All I have is for expenses is cash, instead of it went to my corporate card. So how does it know whether it's a corporate card or not?
So the transactions come in through a feed, and so if you swipe the corporate card, it will come in as a feed for that. If it's not, when you open a new expense type, you can't select it to be the corporate card because it knows that those transactions need to be coming in from the feed from Wells Fargo. So in that case, that's really just a control for Chesapeake so that people don't try to fabricate charges one way or the other.
Okay, so I'd have to wait for it to appear.
Yes, once the transactions appear, then you can go ahead and submit those expenses because it goes on that. Can we go back, Keisha, to the transaction piece?
Sure.
Actually, let's go to Concur.
Okay.
I can show you guys how to do this as well. Is this on? Okay. So if you, we can go to this looking for, and I can kind of show you where the expense center is. You kind of scroll all the way to the bottom, and here's the travel and expense section and expense center. Do you have any card transactions on yours?
I do.
You do, okay.
Oh, no card transaction, sorry.
Okay.
Well, actually, I might. The travel team so graciously booked a trip for me this morning and yesterday. I'm going to both Casper and San Antonio.
You'll have your air on there.
Proxy is me.
And thank you for the questions from the field. As soon as we get through this example, we'll answer some of those questions you guys have out there.
This is, so if you could see here, this is kind of an example. I hosted into my profile, and I have 3 transactions here. And so this is how it would look on your expense report once those transactions flow in. And then once you see those, you can checkbox them here. If you want to do all of them, let's say you just do a trip every once in a while, you can go ahead and select that checkbox. It'll pull all of those expenses in, and then it asks you, where do you want to move it to? So you move it then to the expense report. If you've already got one created, you can move it to one that you've already got, or you could move it into a new one as well.
Is there how long does it take? Because I had the Concur inspection in these costs last week, and it still hasn't shown up.
Yes, we're working out some bugs with the feed, and so some of those transactions may or may not be in Concur as of today, but by next week it will definitely be there. And you have time. You don't need to reconcile those right away, but they will be. So to answer your question, it will be instantaneous once that feed is 100% operational.
Once the charges have hit your account, you'll receive an email from Concur that states you need to go in and reconcile the charges. Generally, it takes about 2 to 3 days for the vendors to upload their information and get it to the bank, and the bank to get it to us. Like Chris said, we're just trying to work out some bugs.
So with that, what if this doesn't happen, there's a disconnect somewhere? Who do we just call someone? So what if there's a disconnect and for some reason they never make it there? There's some kind of mess up. Who do we just send an email over to the travel team, say, hey, went on this trip, charge this, and it's never occurred, or do we follow up with wherever we incurred the expense at, or?
You can contact, sorry, I don't mean to take over.
Go.
You can contact CHK Card Program, and we can look into what's going on. And if I can't answer it, then we'll get it over to Chris.
Okay.
If we can we take a few questions from the field?
Yes.
That'd be all right. Let's see. Oh, David LaCruz. So if I'm traveling to another city and staying over one night, do I need to book a hotel in advance or just get a room? That actually might be a better question for travel.
Yeah, so we would definitely encourage everybody to utilize Concur Travel to book all of their travel needs.
And obviously, booking as far out in advance as you possibly can would be best to secure rates, discounted airfare, so on and so forth.
Thank you for that question. Just one more. With the app, you can immediately attach the picture of the receipt to the line item of the expense, correct?
Yes, you can. You can actually you can create their expense report in the app and then add the receipt directly to it. It actually tries to do that when you first take a picture of the receipt. It tries to start building a report for you, and you can cancel out of it, and it will upload to the site. But yes, you absolutely can.
Wonderful. Well, Chris, do you think this would be a good time to show everyone what it would be like if you had an expense that was from an e-receipt vendor and flowed through to Concur, how that process would work?
Sure.
Okay. So if you guys hung around from the travel presentation, you would have heard about e-receipt vendors where you don't have to get your itinerary, you don't have to get a copy of your folio, because once your stay is complete, the vendor would automatically send your receipt through to Concur. Important thing to note, this is only for air, hotel, or car rental. So it won't work for your meals, unfortunately. Anything outside of those three things, you'd still need to either take a picture of your receipt using Concur Mobile, or you need to bring it back to campus to scan it in. But here's an example of what that process would look like.
After completing a trip, you can quickly create an expense report by locating your trip in the trip list section on the My Concur page. Concur Travel and Expense will automatically add to your expense report all credit card transactions that are tied to the purchase of the trip, or that have transaction dates between the date you left and the date you returned. Start a new report. Click Expense this trip. The credit card transactions from your completed trip are added to your expense report. Notice that the room rate expense has an e-receipt. E-receipts are electronic versions of receipt data that are sent directly to Concur to replace imaged paper receipts. If your company allows e-receipts, you must opt in from your profile before e-receipts will show in expense. By clicking on the e-receipt icon, you can view the receipt image. Concur Travel and Expense assigns expense types using merchant codes contained in each credit card transaction. If it cannot determine an expense type, the system assigns the expense type undefined. You must correct any undefined expense types before you can submit an expense report. Click on the undefined expense. Select the expense type. Select the appropriate expense type from the list. Click Save. You have updated all of your report's expense types, and you are ready to review and submit your expense report. Thank you, and click Done to close the window.
I just want to clarify on this. This says that it can book per trip. You can start your report this way. That is great. But we, as Chesapeake, want you to reconcile per cycle. The cycle runs from the 6th to the 5th of every month, and we will go more into detail in the next section on that. So from the 6th to the 5th of the month, everything is going to be due on the 12th. I see people writing, so that's why I'm giving you this information. So you can start your report like it said on this video, and then if you need to add the existing transactions, please do so. Because we will email you and let you know that you have more to do.
Sorry, so what happens if you take a trip and it splits that window? Do you have to put part on one cycle and part, then it kind of defeats the purpose of kind of consolidating and having just one report?
Well, odds are you'll probably have some more transactions that fall at a later time. So we do. We want you to split it out per cycle. It's similar to a personal credit card. You have a cycle that you have to pay for, and then you have the next cycle that starts. So we want you to reconcile per cycle, get it all cleared out, start over a new report.
Let's take 2 questions from the field if we can. And this might be a question for you, Krista. When traveling from the field to corporate, eating lunch on campus, you can simply scan your ID badge. How do we expense these transactions?
If it scans your ID badge, then it's going to be payroll deducted from your payroll. So rather than scanning your ID badge, it might be better to use your travel card, so that would then end up on your corporate card.
Thank you, Krista. Another question, would it be easier or can you use the new travel card to go straight into your expenses? I think he was actually answering another question. I apologize. I think that's all the questions that we have from the field at this time. Back to you guys.
Good. The billing address for your credit card should be 6100 Northwestern Avenue, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73118. So we have gotten that question a lot.
That is also in your training manual. And I think Heather has gotten a few things actually to her office. So if you order something with your corporate card, the billing address should be for campus. But the delivery address should be your address or wherever you'd like the item delivered to.
I don't need any safety gloves or drill bits for my job, but thank you.
I think the confusion is coming from the Wells Fargo that our corporate card comes in. It has an address of Salt Lake City, Utah. I obviously know Chesapeake Energy's address, but this is the confusion.
I think that was put on there just in case they got lost in the mail. If you could look at the return address and the address that's also in that window, I believe they are the same. Just in case they do get lost, it goes back to Wells Fargo.
If there's no other questions, thank you for your time this morning, everyone. Please send in your questions. If you have any issues, you've got your resources here. Feel free to reach out to anyone and let them know. We can make sure you get the help you need. Thank you.